1 year after humanity departed from galactic space, the universe looked completely different. The great galactic council that had ruled for millions of years was gone. The ancient chamber where aliens had made laws for countless worlds was dark and empty. The crystal walls no longer hummed with power, and the floating platforms where counselors had debated were covered in dust. The collapse had been faster and more complete than anyone had imagined. Entire sectors of space had gone dark, as power systems failed and could not be repaired. Star systems that had been connected for millennia found themselves cut off and alone. Trade routes that had carried goods and ideas across the galaxy for thousands of years simply stopped working. Alien species tried to maintain their civilizations independently, but without the human-designed infrastructure that had connected everything together, most fell into isolation and decline. The lucky ones managed to keep their basic systems running. The unlucky ones faced complete technological collapse. The Void Raiders, sensing the weakness of their ancient enemies, launched the largest offensive in their history. Their black fleets swept across former Council space, conquering world after world, with almost no resistance. The alien military forces that had once been the terror of the galaxy now fled before enemies they had easily defeated when human tacticians had been guiding their strategies. But in the regions of space where humans had built their new colonies, life was very different. Admiral So-Young now commanded the human defense fleet from her flagship New Earth, a massive space station that served as the mobile capital of human space. Her ships patrolled trade routes that connected dozens of independent species who had never been part of the old council. The difference was remarkable. These smaller alien civilizations had never developed the arrogance of the great powers. They welcomed human partnership and treated humans as equals rather than as useful servants. The relationships were based on mutual respect and shared benefit, rather than hierarchy and condescension. On the frontier world of New Busan, manager Yunji oversaw mining operations that provided rare minerals to both human and alien colonies. The workers were a mix of species, all following safety protocols that human engineers had developed. Everyone was paid fairly, and everyone had a voice in how the operation was run. An old Altarian miner named Klekvor had fled the chaos in council space and found work in the human mines. He marveled at the difference between his old life and his new one. In council space, we worked because we had to, and we were told what to do by species that considered themselves superior, he told Yunji over lunch. Here, humans and aliens work together as partners. We share ideas and solve problems together. This is what cooperation should look like. Dr. Minho had established the New Horizon Research Institute on a space station in the neutral zone between human and alien territories. His laboratories welcomed scientists from any species that was willing to work together and share knowledge. The breakthroughs they achieved in just 1 year surpassed anything the old council had accomplished in decades. Human scientist Dr. Haywan worked alongside a crystal being named Siltex to develop new medical treatments that could help both carbon-based and silicon-based life forms. Their partnership produced innovations that neither species could have achieved alone. The old council system discouraged this kind of cooperation. Siltex explained to visitors touring the facility. Different species were supposed to stay in their assigned roles and not interfere with each other. Humans changed that by treating everyone as equals with valuable contributions to make. The economic transformation was equally dramatic. The old galactic economy had been controlled by a few powerful species who determined what was produced, where it was sold, and how much it cost. The new trade networks that humans helped establish were based on free markets and fair competition. Trade coordinator Park Min managed the commercial relationships between human space and dozens of independent alien governments. His offices on the trading station, Liberty Point, processed thousands of transactions every day, all based on mutual benefit rather than exploitation. We do not tell our partners what they can or cannot trade, he explained to a delegation of aliens who wanted to join the human trade network. We provide fair prices, efficient transportation, and honest dealing. Everyone benefits when everyone is free to pursue their own interests. The military situation was equally transformed. The old council had maintained peace through overwhelming force and the threat of punishment. The human approach was based on cooperation and mutual defense agreements. Colonel Jin Woo commanded the joint defense force that protected the independent systems allied with humanity. His forces included humans and aliens working together. using tactics that emphasized flexibility and adaptation rather than rigid hierarchy. When the Void Raiders tried to attack our territory, they expected to face the same kind of predictable resistance they had been crushing in Council space, he reported to the human High Command. Instead, they found coordinated forces that could adapt and respond to their tactics. They retreated after losing half their fleet, but the most profound change was philosophical. The old galactic civilization had been based on the idea that some species were naturally superior to others. That age and tradition gave certain aliens the right to rule over younger species. The new order that emerged around human space rejected this completely. Ambassador Hyun-woo, who had led the dramatic walkout from the Council, now served as the first Chancellor of the Independent Systems Alliance. He spoke to representatives from 47 different species who had joined together as equals. We do not believe that any species is inherently superior to another, he told the assembled delegates. We believe that all intelligent life has value and deserves respect. We judge civilizations, not by their age or their traditions, but by their willingness to work together and help each other grow. The transformation was not without challenges. Some of the old Council species sent diplomatic missions to human space begging for aid and assistance. They painted pictures of suffering populations and collapsing civilizations. They promised full equality and partnership if humans would just return to help them rebuild. Each request was considered carefully, but the answer was always the same. Humanity would welcome individual aliens who wanted to join the new order, but they would not return to prop up the old system that had rejected them. Chancellor Hyun-woo explained the human position to a delegation of former council leaders who had come to beg for assistance. You had millions of years to build a civilization based on cooperation and mutual respect. Instead, you chose hierarchy and domination. When we offered to help you build something better, you rejected us. Now you want us to help you rebuild the same broken system. The delegation leader, an ancient being whose species had been among the founders of the Council, pleaded desperately. But billions of innocent beings are suffering because of the collapse. Many of them never supported the policies that drove humanity away. Hyun-woo felt genuine sympathy for the individual aliens who were caught up in the disaster. But he could not ignore the larger truth. Those innocent beings can join us as equals in building something new, he replied. But we will not sacrifice our independence to restore a system that was fundamentally unjust. The old galaxy is gone, a new one is being born, and it will be better than what came before. As the years passed, the contrast between the old Council territories and the new human-led alliance became even more stark. The former Council world struggled with poverty, isolation, and constant warfare, while the Allied systems prospered through cooperation and shared innovation. Historians would later mark this period as the end of the Age of Empires and the beginning of the Age of Cooperation. The old idea that some species were meant to rule over others was replaced by the revolutionary concept that all intelligent life deserved equal treatment and opportunity. The universe had taught humanity a valuable lesson about the importance of self-respect and independence, but it had also taught the galaxy an even more important lesson about the difference between ruling through fear and leading through inspiration. The day mankind departed the Galactic Council was indeed the day the universe learned something new. It learned that the future belonged not to ancient civilizations resting on past glories, but to those brave enough to build something better among the stars. And as humans looked up at the night sky from their new worlds, they saw not a galaxy controlled by ancient powers, but a universe full of friends and partners, ready to explore the infinite possibilities that lay ahead. 6 months after humanity vanished from galactic space, the alien civilizations faced their darkest hour. The proud Galactic Council that had ruled for millions of years was dying not from war or natural disaster, but from the simple absence of a species they had considered inferior. Emergency Counselor Thexray floated in what remained of the Great Crystal Chamber. Half the lights no longer worked because human technicians were not there to maintain the power systems. The beautiful humming sound the walls used to make was replaced by grinding mechanical noises that hurt to listen to. The latest reports painted a picture of complete civilizational collapse. Industrial production had dropped to 20% of previous levels. Communication. Networks connected less than half the star systems they used to reach. The medical systems could barely treat simple injuries, let alone complex diseases. Most terrifying of all, the Void Raiders had broken through the outer defense perimeter and were advancing on the core worlds. Their black ships moved through space like hungry predators, sensing that their prey was wounded and helpless. Counselor Jeknat of the Silicon Collective presented the military situation to the emergency assembly. His crystalline body flickered with patterns of fear as he spoke. The defense fleet has lost 70% of its effective combat strength in 6 months. Our tactical systems cannot adapt to Void Raider strategies without human input. Our officers follow the same attack patterns over and over while the enemy learns and adjusts. We are fighting like machines while they fight, like living beings. General Mordex had commanded fleets for 3 centuries, but he had never faced defeat like this. His proud warrior species had built their reputation on discipline and honor, but discipline without flexibility was just another word for predictable failure. The humans taught us that every battle tells a story, he admitted to his staff, and the story changes as you fight it. They could read the enemy, adapt the plan, and find new solutions in the middle of combat. We learned their standard procedures, but we cannot improvise like they could. The economic reports were even more devastating. Trade coordinator. Jexval had overseen commerce between thousands of worlds for decades, but now he watched helplessly as the galactic economy tore itself apart. Currency exchange rates are fluctuating wildly without human economic models, he reported. Shipping schedules have collapsed because we do not understand the logistics algorithms humans created. Food distribution networks are failing because human agricultural experts designed systems we cannot maintain. On the manufacturing world of Iron Prime Factory Director Colvin stood among silent assembly lines that had once produced starships for the entire sector. The massive machines were perfectly functional, but none of his workers knew how to operate them without human supervision. The humans did not just work here. They transformed everything, he said to his management team. They redesigned our production methods, made our quality control systems work, with 17 different alien manufacturing standards, created maintenance schedules that kept everything running perfectly. We thought we were learning from them, but we were just copying their actions. The most bitter irony was that all the human innovations were still there. The computers held all the data the manuals contained, all the procedures, the systems had all the same components. But without human intelligence to interpret and adapt and improve, none of it worked properly. Dr. Yimrex had been the lead researcher at the Galactic Science Institute, working alongside human scientists for 12 years. She had published papers with them, attended conferences with them, learned their methods and techniques. But now she realized she had never truly understood their approach to science. Human scientists did not just follow the scientific method, she explained to her remaining staff. They brought intuition and creativity and willingness to question everything. We learned their experimental procedures, but we did not learn how to think like they think. When unexpected results appear, we do not know what questions to ask. The failure was not just technical, it was philosophical. The alien civilizations had spent millions of years perfecting their cultures, creating elaborate traditions and complex social structures. They had mistaken age for wisdom, stability for strength. Humans had only been in space for a few centuries, but they brought something the ancient aliens had lost: the ability to adapt to change, to innovate, to build something new instead of just maintaining something old. President Lin Kai of the Ethereal Collective spoke the truth that everyone knew, but no one wanted to admit. We called them young and primitive, but they were doing what we had forgotten how to do. They were still growing, still learning, still building, while we were just maintaining what our ancestors created. The desperate messages began arriving at human space within days of the military disasters: formal diplomatic requests, emergency, please, personal messages from individual aliens who had worked with humans and considered them friends. Captain So Young received the communications while commanding the human fleet from her new base in the Alpha Centauri system. She read them aloud to her senior staff with a mixture of sadness and satisfaction. The Galactic Council formally requests immediate humanitarian assistance. to prevent civilian casualties from infrastructure failures. She read from one message, the Vorthen Collective offers full membership and voting rights to humanity in exchange for emergency technical support. Colonel Jin Woo laughed, but there was no humor in it. Voting rights? Now they offer us voting rights, when they need us to save them from their own incompetence. Where were our voting rights when we were bleeding for them? Dr. Min Ho studied the technical reports that came with the pleas for help. The scope of the collapse was even worse than they had expected. Every major system, every critical technology, every important process had been touched by human innovation over the decades. They built their entire civilization on top of our contributions, he observed, then convinced themselves they were the superior species. It would be fascinating if it were not so tragic. On Earth, President Park Seo convened the Human High Council to decide how to respond to the aliens' desperate requests. Representatives from every human colony, every military command, every scientific institution gathered to debate their species' future. The discussion was intense, but the conclusion was inevitable. Senator Bora from the Mars colonies spoke for many when she said, "They had 300 years to treat us as equals. Instead, they used us as convenient servants. Now they want us to come running back to save them from the consequences of their own arrogance." The vote was unanimous. Humanity would not return to serve as the aliens' emergency repair service. They had found their independence, and they would not give it up to rescue civilizations that had never respected them. But the most important change was not political or military. It was psychological. For the first time in human history, they truly understood their own worth. They were not the junior species begging for acceptance. They were the innovators, the builders, the ones who made things work. Admiral Jong-soo put it best in his speech to the Human Space Command. "We were told we were too young, too violent, too different to join their perfect civilization. We have learned that we were exactly what their civilization needed to survive. They just realized it too late. The galaxy was learning a harsh lesson about the difference between ruling and leading. The aliens had ruled through tradition and hierarchy and ancient authority, but humans had led through competence and innovation and the willingness to solve problems. As the reports of alien suffering continued to arrive, human leaders felt sympathy for individual aliens who had treated them fairly, but they felt no obligation to save civilizations that had rejected them. The universe was vast and full of opportunities for those brave enough to seize them. Humanity had chosen to build their own future, rather than beg for a place in someone else's past. And as they looked up at the stars, they saw not a galaxy controlled by ancient powers, but a universe full of possibilities waiting for those with the courage to explore them. 3 months had passed since the last human ship disappeared from galactic space. The silence was deafening. Not the kind of silence you hear with your ears, but the kind you feel in your soul when something important is missing. The galaxy felt empty, broken like a musical instrument with half its strings. Cut on the water world of Nepterus, the Aquatic Council gathered in their great underwater dome. The blue-green aliens who ruled this sector had always been proud of their ancient civilization. They claimed to be one of the oldest species in the galaxy, with wisdom that spanned millennia. Council leader Merkai floated in the center of the dome, his tentacles waving nervously as he spoke to his advisors. "The industrial output reports are catastrophic," he said. "Our manufacturing centers are operating at only 30% capacity. Without human engineers, we cannot maintain the automated systems." His chief advisor Neptol swam closer, carrying data tablets in his tentacles. "The humans did not just work in our factories, my lord. They redesigned our entire production process, their efficiency methods, their quality control systems, their maintenance schedules. We thought we understood these things, but we only understood the surface. The communication networks that connected thousands of worlds were beginning to fail. The quantum relay stations that humans had built and maintained were shutting down one by one. Without constant adjustment and repair, the signals became weaker and more distorted until entire sectors lost contact with the galactic core." Chief Technician Ripvar of the Crystalline Collective stood before a wall of dead monitors in what had once been the busiest communication center in the galaxy. His crystal body flickered with stress patterns as he tried to explain the disaster to his superiors. The human technicians did not just press buttons and follow instructions. They understood the deep principles behind the technology. When something went wrong, they could adapt and find solutions. We only learned to repeat their actions without understanding why. Now, when problems arise, we have no idea how to fix them. The medical crisis was even worse. Dr. Zilnex had been the head physician at Mercy General Hospital, the largest medical center serving 12 star systems. She had worked alongside human doctors for 8 years, learning from their techniques and knowledge. Now she faced patients she could not help. The cross-species medical protocols that human doctors developed were revolutionary. She reported to the medical board. They found ways to treat diseases that jumped between different types of alien biology, but the treatments require constant adjustment based on patient response. Human doctors could sense when something was wrong and change the medicine. We followed their instructions, but we cannot replicate their intuitive understanding. Patient after patient died from illnesses that human doctors could have easily treated, and the medical computers still had all the data and all the procedures. But without human insight to interpret and adapt the information, the alien doctors were helpless. The economic collapse was swift and brutal. Trade routes that had operated smoothly for centuries began experiencing critical failures. The financial systems that managed currency exchange between hundreds of different worlds started producing impossible calculations. Bank President Vexmore of the Galactic Trade Consortium called an emergency meeting with sector leaders. His usually confident demeanor was replaced by obvious panic. Human economists did not just manage our financial systems, they revolutionized them. He explained to the gathered aliens. Their algorithms handled currency fluctuations across 17 different economic models. Their fraud detection systems prevented billions in losses every year. We thought these were simple computer programs, but they required constant human oversight and adjustment. Without human supervision, the banking systems began making errors. Massive errors. Small mistakes compounded into catastrophic failures. The stock markets crashed on 43 worlds in a single day, as computer systems tried to process transactions they no longer understood. The agricultural disaster struck hardest on the farming worlds that fed billions of people across the galaxy. Human agricultural scientists had developed new crops that could grow in different alien environments they had created, pest control methods that worked on hundreds of different planets. Farm manager Groktoon stood in his withering fields on the agricultural world of Greenlands. The crops that had fed his entire sector for 20 years were dying, and he did not know why. The human agronomists taught us to plant these hybrid crops, but they never explained all the details. They just said, trust the process and follow the schedule. Now the plants are sick and we do not know what nutrients they need or how to treat. The diseases, food shortages began appearing across the galaxy. Planets that had been self-sufficient for generations found themselves unable to feed their populations. The complex supply chains that distributed food across thousands of worlds broke down without human logistics experts to manage them. But the worst disaster was military. The Void Raiders had been a constant threat for centuries. Nomadic warriors who attacked merchant ships and raided border colonies. The Galactic Defense Force had kept them contained through superior tactics and technology. General Klaxwin stood in the command center of the flagship Eternal Guard, staring at tactical displays that showed nothing but defeat after defeat. His insect warriors were brave and disciplined, but they could not adapt to the changing battlefield the way human officers could. Human military doctrine was based on flexibility and innovation. His strategic advisor reported, "They taught us that every battle is different, that you must constantly adjust your plans based on what the enemy does. We learned their standard tactics, but we cannot think like they think." 3 major defensive positions had fallen to Void Raider attacks in the past month. The aliens had relied on human strategic thinking for so long that they had forgotten how to develop new tactics on their own. Their military commanders followed rigid procedures that worked when facing predictable enemies, but failed completely against adaptive foes. The Raiders sensed weakness in the Galactic Defense Force responses. They began launching bolder attacks, striking deeper into civilized space than they had dared in generations. Entire star systems sent panicked messages begging for military protection that could no longer be provided effectively. Emergency Counselor Thexray was appointed to deal with the cascading crises. He was an ancient being whose species had helped found the Galactic Council millions of years ago. He had seen civilizations rise and fall, had witnessed the birth and death of entire star systems. But he had never seen anything like this. Our analysts estimate complete economic collapse within 18 months. Without human technical support, he reported to the emergency session, military defeat within 1 year. If current trends continue, the infrastructure failures are accelerating faster than we can respond. The proud alien civilizations that had dismissed humanity as barbaric children now faced an uncomfortable truth. They had become completely dependent on those same barbarians for their survival. Every major system, every critical technology, every important process had been improved or maintained by human knowledge and human innovation. The galaxy had spent millions of years developing its civilization, slowly, carefully building layer upon layer of technology and culture. But in just 50 years, humans had become the invisible foundation, holding everything together. Remove that foundation, and the entire structure collapsed. Counselor Veltar spoke the words that everyone was thinking, but no one wanted to say aloud. How did we become so dependent on a single species? How did we not notice that humans had become essential to our survival? Answer was simple but humiliating. Humans had not conquered the galaxy through force or politics. They had made themselves indispensable through competence, hard work, and innovation. While the aliens debated and pontificated about civilization, humans had been busy actually building and maintaining it. Now those same aliens sat in their failing cities with their broken machines and their collapsing economy, wondering how they could have been so blind. The universe had taught them a harsh lesson about the difference between talking about civilization and actually creating it. The news spread across the galaxy faster than a solar storm racing through space. Within hours of Hyunwoo's announcement, every human ship captain in the galaxy received the same message. All humans return home immediately. No exceptions, no delays, no questions asked. Captain So Young stood on the bridge of her massive battleship Soul's Pride, looking out at the giant space station that had been humanity's home in the galactic core for 20 years. Kepler Station was the size of a small moon, with millions of people living and working inside its metal walls. It had taken 15 years to build, and now they had to empty it completely. In just a few days, sir, we have over 2 million humans on this station. Lieutenant Taemin reported from his control panel. His young face looked worried. How are we going to move everyone so fast? So Young smiled, but it was not a happy smile. The same way we do everything else. We work harder and faster than anyone thinks possible. She turned to face her crew. All hands prepare for emergency evacuation. Every transport ship, every cargo vessel, every escape pod gets used. We leave nothing behind. That belongs to humans. Down in the station, Manager Kyung-soo was already organizing the massive job of packing up 20 years of human life. The factories that made parts for alien spaceships, the hospitals that treated sick aliens from dozens of different species, the schools where human children learned alongside alien kids. All of it had to be dismantled and removed. The aliens who lived on the station watched in shock as humans began tearing apart everything they had built. A Vorthan merchant who had been trading with humans for 10 years floated up to Kyung-soo, making panicked light. Patterns, you cannot do this, the alien said through its translator device. This station provides power to the entire sector. Without the human power plants, everything will go dark. Kyung-soo did not stop directing his workers as he answered. Should have thought about that before you decided we were not civilized enough. The power plants were built by human hands with human knowledge. Figure out how to run them yourselves. On the other side of the galaxy, Engineer Yoonji was shutting down the antimatter refineries on New Busan. These huge factories provided clean energy to half the surrounding star systems. Human workers had spent 30 years building them from nothing, turning a dead rock into one of the most important industrial worlds in the galaxy. The local Altarian governor arrived at the main facility with a group of insect soldiers, all of them clicking and buzzing with obvious panic. Its compound eyes reflected the light from the factory fires as human workers began the controlled destruction of equipment they could not take with them. This is economic terrorism, the governor said, waving its many arms. You are destroying critical infrastructure that belongs to all civilized species. Yunji looked up from the demolition schedule she was reviewing wrong. These factories were built by humans with human money using human designs. Every piece of equipment, every computer system, every safety protocol was created by my people. She pointed at the massive cooling towers that were already being shut down. You want to keep them running? Learn how to do it without us. The governor made frantic clicking sounds. But the technical manuals, the maintenance schedules, the safety procedures, we do not understand your human methods. That sounds like your problem now, Yunji said calmly. My people are going home. Dr. Minho coordinated the evacuation from his research ship, Sejong, floating in deep space between star systems. His ship was really a floating city full of laboratories and workshops where human scientists had made the discoveries that changed galactic civilization. The quantum computers that let alien species communicate instantly across vast distances, the medical scanners that could detect diseases in any species, the fusion reactors that provided unlimited clean energy. All of these inventions had come from human minds and human hands. Now Minho watched as his people carefully dismantled everything they had built. His top scientist, Dr. Hai Wan, reported the latest numbers are we have removed all human technology from 47 star systems so far. The aliens are starting to realize how much they depended on our innovations. The Nexus communication network is already showing problems without our technicians. Minho nodded grimly. Good. Let them see what their civilization looks like without the species they called too primitive to join their club. The evacuation was not just about technology and buildings, it was about people. Millions of humans had made lives. For themselves on alien worlds, they had friends and jobs and homes. But when the call came to return, they all answered. Teacher Boram had spent 5 years on the water world of Aquanis, teaching alien children how to read and write in the Galactic common language. She loved her students and they loved her, but when the evacuation order came, she packed her few belongings and left. Her starfish, like students, gathered at the spaceport to say goodbye, making sad bubbling sounds in their water tanks. Why must you leave Teacher Boram? They asked. We do not understand because your leaders decided that humans are not good enough to be treated as equals. Boram explained gently. When people do not respect you, it is time to find better friends. Dr. Subin had been working in the medical center on Crystalline, treating patients from dozens of different species. Her research on cross-species medicine had saved thousands of lives, but she too packed up her equipment and prepared to leave. The hospital administrator, a tall crystal, being tried to convince her to stay. Doctor, your work here is too important. You cannot abandon your patients. Subin looked around at the medical equipment she had designed and built. The scanners that could see inside any type of body. The medicines that worked on completely different biologies. The surgical robots that could operate on creatures humans had never seen before. All of it was being carefully removed. I am not abandoning anyone, she said quietly. I am taking my knowledge and my skills to people who appreciate them. You made it clear that humans are not welcome as equals, so we are leaving. The most shocking part of the evacuation was how organized it was. Humans had learned efficiency and teamwork from their years as junior members of galactic society. Now they used those skills to disappear completely from alien space. Every human ship worked together. Every evacuation followed the same plan. Every piece of human knowledge and technology was either taken away or destroyed so it could not be copied. There was no anger, no violence, no destruction beyond what was necessary, just cold, professional withdrawal. Within 1 week, the first effects began to show. The power grids on 17 worlds started having problems without human engineers. The spaceports began experiencing computer failures without human technicians. The hospitals ran out of medicines that only human scientists knew how to make. Admiral Jong-Soo commanded the final evacuation, fleet 1,000 ships carrying the last humans from the galactic core. As his fleet prepared to jump to hyperspace, he received a desperate message from the Galactic Council. Please reconsider this hasty action. The message said, emergency negotiations can be arranged, compromises can be made. The galaxy needs human participation. Jong-soo read the message aloud to his bridge crew, then deleted it without responding. The time for negotiations was over. The time for compromises had passed. The galaxy had made its choice, and now it would live with the consequences. As the human fleet disappeared into hyperspace heading for home space, the aliens were left to contemplate a galaxy suddenly much emptier and much more dangerous than it had been just days before. They had thought humans were too young and too primitive to matter. They were about to learn how wrong they had been. Hyunwoo walked slowly into the giant crystal room where the Galactic Council met every month. The room was so big that it made him feel like a tiny ant walking into a huge cave. The walls were made of some kind of blue crystal that glowed softly and made strange humming sounds when the alien creatures talked. He wore his best human diplomatic uniform, but it looked plain and simple compared to the fancy clothes and weird body shapes of the other species around him. Some aliens floated in the air, some had tentacles instead of arms, and some looked like walking trees with eyes. The smell in the room was terrible, like rotten eggs mixed with burning plastic. Behind him walked Captain So Young and Dr. Min Ho, his two closest friends and advisors. So Young was a tough military woman who had fought in many space battles. Her uniform had medals all over it that showed how brave she was. Dr. Min Ho was a smart scientist who had helped humans travel between stars faster than anyone thought possible. They had been coming to these meetings for 10 years now, always sitting in the back row, always being told to be quiet, always being treated like children who should not speak unless asked. Hyunwoo was tired of it. Really tired. The big jellyfish creature that was the boss of the council started glowing brighter. That meant it was going to talk. All the other aliens got quiet and turned to look at it. The creature had no mouth, but somehow its voice filled the whole room when it spoke. The human request for full membership in the Galactic Council is denied again, the jellyfish said in a voice that sounded like music mixed with the sound of breaking glass. Your species is too young, too violent, and too stupid to be real members of this great council. Hyunwoo felt his hands make fists, but he tried to stay calm. He had heard these same words many times before, but they still made him angry. Every time humans asked to be full members, they were told no. Every time they were given reasons that did not make sense. So Young moved closer to him and whispered in his ear, "Sir, they are doing this again, just like always. Maybe we should just leave and never come back." But Hyunwoo shook his head. He wanted to hear everything they had to say. He wanted to remember every insult, every mean word, so he could tell the people back on Earth exactly how these aliens really felt about humans. A big bug creature that looked like a giant ant with too many eyes started talking next. Its voice sounded like clicking and scraping, but the translation machine in Hyunwoo's ear made it sound like normal words. Humans are too dangerous. The bug creature said, "You build too many warships. You fight too much. You are not peaceful like us civilized species. We have been watching you, and you scare us with your weapons and your angry ways." Dr. Min Ho made a small angry sound next to Hyunwoo. This was extra mean because humans had actually helped many of these alien species fight off pirates and bad guys. Human soldiers had died protecting alien trade ships and alien colonies, but now the aliens were saying humans were too violent. Then a creature made of pure light and energy started talking. It had no real body, just bright colors floating in the air inside a glass box. Its voice sounded like wind blowing through metal pipes. "The worst thing about humans is that you do not know how to behave properly," the light creature said. "You are like wild animals that have learned to use tools. You do not understand real civilization like we do. Maybe in 1,000 years, when you grow up and learn manners, we might think about letting you join us." That was the moment when something inside Hyunwoo finally broke. He had spent his whole life trying to make peace between humans and aliens. He had learned their languages, studied their cultures, and tried to understand their ways. He had given up time with his family and friends to serve as a diplomat, but it was never enough. Nothing humans did was ever good enough for these aliens. When humans shared their technology, the aliens said it was too simple. When humans fought to protect alien worlds, the aliens said they were too violent. When humans tried to trade fairly, the aliens said they were too greedy. Hyunwoo stood up slowly. All the alien creatures turned to look at him. Some of them made weird noises that sounded like laughing. The jellyfish boss glowed brighter with what looked like amusement. "The human has something to say," the jellyfish said in a mocking tone. "How interesting. Please tell us what your young species thinks about our wise decision." Hyunwoo looked around the room at all the strange faces and weird shapes. He thought about Earth and all the human colonies, spread across many star systems. He thought about human children who dreamed of exploring space and meeting friendly aliens. He thought about human scientists who had worked day and night to help make the galaxy a better place. He thought about Captain, so young, and all the brave human soldiers who had died fighting to protect alien civilians. They had given their lives for creatures who saw them as nothing more than useful animals. Human blood had been spilled on dozens of worlds to keep these aliens safe. He thought about Dr. Minho and all the human scientists who had shared their discoveries freely with alien species. The jump drive technology that let ships travel faster between stars had been invented by humans, but they had shared it with everyone for free because they wanted to help make the galaxy more connected. All of these memories and feelings came together inside Hyunwoo like a storm. He was not angry anymore. He was something else, something colder and more dangerous than anger. He was disappointed, and that was much worse. "Very well," Hyunwoo said in a quiet voice that somehow carried to every corner of the giant room. "Humanity officially withdraws from all Galactic Council activities starting right now." The room became completely silent. Nobody moved. Nobody made any sounds. Even the humming of the crystal walls seemed to stop. The aliens looked at each other with confusion on their strange faces. Furthermore, Hyunwoo continued, his voice getting stronger. "All human technology patents are canceled immediately. All military cooperation agreements are finished. All trade deals are void. All human knowledge-sharing programs are ended." He paused and looked directly at the jellyfish boss creature whose glow was starting to flicker with what might have been worry. "All human engineers, all human soldiers, all human doctors, all human teachers, and all human workers are being recalled from alien worlds. Immediately." Hyunwoo said, "We are going home. All of us, right now." The bug creature started making frantic clicking sounds. "Sir, you cannot do this. There are contracts and agreements and legal obligations." Dr. Minho stepped forward and spoke for the first time. "The legal obligations work both ways, friend. We were promised equal treatment and partnership. What we got was insults and discrimination. The contracts are broken from your side. First Captain." So, Young also moved forward, her hand resting on her weapon. Her voice was hard as steel. "When you decided we were not good enough to be your equals, you also decided you did not need our help anymore, so you will not get it." The light creature flickered frantically. "This is madness. You cannot simply leave the galactic community. Economic chaos will result. There will be problems everywhere." Hyunwoo smiled, but it was not a happy smile. "That sounds like a problem for the Galactic Council to solve without human help. Good luck with that." He turned and started walking toward the exit. So, Young and Minho followed him. Their footsteps echoed in the silent crystal chamber. Behind them, the aliens started making all kinds of worried noises and panicked sounds, but Hyunwoo did not look back. He was done looking back. He was ready to look forward to a future where humans did not need permission from anyone to be great.